From fish with unusual abilities to ones that just plain look odd, join me as I reveal to you 12 unusual fish in the ocean, Part 2. 12. Blobfish. The blobfish is actually a very unique specimen when it comes to the world we live in. For you see, the blobfish are a species that lives in incredibly deep waters within the oceans and are used to living in places with incredible pressure. So when they're not in those high pressure areas, they actually transform, in a way, into a more jelly-like state, which is why it looks like a blob when it is on the surface. Yep, that's right. The form you're seeing now is not its true form, but rather its final form. Just catching a blobfish is an incredible endeavor, as no blobfish has ever been caught alive, which is the same for most deep-sea fish. So even if you could catch one, you would have to keep it within a container that exerts the same pressures of the ocean, and then transfer it into a cage that has similar pressures. While its final form is strange, you have to admit that it's also strange that it would transform into this when put out of its proper pressure. And yeah, it just looks weird too. Number 11. Oranda Goldfish. Okay, I want you to picture a goldfish. It could be the one you have, one you've seen at a pet store, whatever you want. Can you picture it? Now, do you see anything weird about that goldfish in your mind? No? Good. That means you're thinking of a standard goldfish. However, a non-standard goldfish is the Oranda Goldfish, which most certainly does not look like a regular one thanks to its enhanced head. By that, I mean that the head has a growth, also known as a hood, called a wen, and it makes it look like the goldfish is rather sick, when actually, it's perfectly fine. Most times anyway. The mass on the head is benign, but sometimes it can grow so big that it actually covers the eyes of the fish, limiting eyesight in a not-so-fun way. Ironically enough, the growth on its head actually makes it attractive to people as pets. People are weird, this is known, especially among the Chinese. Still, if you're going to have a goldfish, I'd say go with the standard ones, that way there's no surprises there. 10. Stargazers. There are many fish in the sea who use a variety of tactics to get their food, and the family known as the stargazers are no exception. Their body is literally built for ambushing unsuspecting prey. For example, their eyes are on the top of their head instead of the sides like most fish. Their bodies are relatively flat, and their mouths are actually upward facing. What they like to do is go into a reef and bury themselves in the sand. Then, they'll wait for small fish to come by unsuspectingly, and then they'll strike. Not weird enough for you? Well, there are 51 species of stargazer in the world, and some of them actually have a lure within their mouths that looks like a worm. So they'll use it to attract prey and bring them closer, thus allowing them an even easier meal. And as if all of that wasn't enough, the stargazers are actually both venomous and electricity infused at times. Yeah, you heard me, they can both poison you and give you an electric shock, depending on the type of one you're looking at. Yet, what might be the oddest of all? Despite all of these odd and dangerous features, people love to eat them in certain countries. Number 9. Asian sheepshead wrasse. Part of the wrasse species, the Asian sheepshead wrasse is odd in a whole host of ways, not the least of which is that somehow this is one of the larger species of wrasse in the world today, as it can reach over 3 feet. The record among wrasse is 8.2 feet for the record, but obviously, when you look at the Asian sheepshead wrasse, you're looking at its head. I mean, how could you not? First and foremost, its head and mouth look like it's swollen, but they're actually not. It's just a protrusion that the fish naturally has. In the case of the mouth, it technically has a very unique jawline thanks to this protrusion. But getting back to the weirdness, the other thing that separates the Asian sheepshead wrasse from others is that the lips of this fish are very big. In fact, they actually look like human lips, maybe ones with a Botox injection, who am I to judge? So yeah, when you add that all together, that's a weird fish. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our weekly videos. 8. Yellow-headed jawfish. Whether as an animal or as a human, you know that a natural instinct is to protect one's young with all you have. And sometimes you need to get creative to do so. For the yellow-headed jawfish, that means putting the eggs in their mouth in order to not just keep an eye on them, but protect them from threats. No, really, that's what they do. Though to be clear, it's not the mother that has the eggs in her mouth. Rather, it's the father that takes up the mantle of child protector. What happens is that the mother will lay the eggs and fertilize them, as you would expect from the mother of the species. And once that process is taken care of, the father will come in and gather all the eggs in his mouth. Once complete, he'll start to incubate them, which can take over a week's time. And in case you are curious, the father will have anywhere from 300 to 500 eggs in his mouth during that time period, showing off not just the small size of the eggs, but the flexibility of the mouth of the yellow-headed jawfish. In terms of protection, yeah, I can see why this would be incredibly effective. In terms of looks, yeah, this is just plain weird. Number 7. Scorpionfish. There are many creatures in the sea that have a cute or beautiful appearance but are actually very deadly, and among these fish are the scorpionfish, a species that is known for its technicolor look, but also its incredibly deadly poison, one that can be found on the spines on its body that happen to be covered with a type of mucus. Yeah, you read that right. If this sounds familiar, you might know the name of one of the family members to this line, the lionfish, which is also known as one of the deadliest creatures of the sea. It's just a curious thing to see that there is a creature that can be quite pretty to look at, but if you get too close to it, it will sting you. Not unlike a scorpion, minus the pretty factor, of course. This species are also known to bury themselves at the bottom of certain seafloors and wait for foes to accidentally touch them, to which they can strike. 6. Frogfish. The species known as the frogfish are actually a subsection of the angler fish line, but this one has a few unique qualities that help it stand out. First off, they're scaleless, which allows them to have all sorts of unique looks via their skin. They can even look frilly at times and thus resemble certain underwater plants. This comes in handy when they want to hide from predators or hunt food. Speaking of which, they're also not opposed to using mimicry via movements to try and convince its prey that it's actually one of them, and thus will get them into a lulled state of security, then strike. Which brings me to the most eye-popping moment of this feature. The frogfish is actually so quick that it can snatch up a prey in 6 milliseconds. That's so fast that most people can't see it happen. Why a fish needs to be this fast is beyond me. Number 5. BOXFISH. I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? I mean, it's called a boxfish. I'm sure you can guess, at least in part, why this fish is so strange, right? Well, in case you can't get the hint, the boxfish are a type of bony fish, and yes, they're actually shaped in part like a box. Mainly in how you look at them from the front view, they're box-like, or at times they can be even triangle-like. But wait, there's more! The boxfish isn't just oddly shaped, it's oddly built, to the extent that the scales that the boxfish have are armored heavily, so much so that they are actually only a few fish in the ocean that can try and eat a boxfish because of the scales being so hard. Yet, this comes with a drawback. Because of its rigidity and security, it can't exactly move very well, so its swim speed is low. But when you have that kind of protection, I guess movement speed isn't too big a worry, huh? 4. Psychedelic frogfish. What's that? Didn't we do the frogfish already? Yeah, but that was the pure species of them. This is one of their offshoots, and it's just as weird. If you don't believe me, just reread the name psychedelic frogfish. This species was actually discovered by accident in Indonesia by a scuba diving instructor. What he saw was a zebra-striped fish that was literally bouncing along the ocean floor, which if you know how water works, that's not easy to do. Then there's the look. Its stripe pattern is very unique, and in fact, every psychedelic frogfish has their own very special stripe pattern. That makes it easy for people to keep track of them and thus study them at length. Why they have this stripe pattern is unknown. What is known, though, is that the psychedelic frogfish is actually able to somehow extend its head and mouth forward, which totally isn't creepy at all. Number 3. Pufferfish. You no doubt have heard about the pufferfish at some point in your lives, and if so, you know that this is a fish that is not only strange in its looks and behaviors, but also in how it's appreciated all over the world. In case you don't know, the pufferfish has a toxin that is feared all over the world, tetrodotoxin, and the fish is literally infused with it from top to bottom, gill to gill, so the slightest touch of this fish on your skin will leave you dead. Period. Which brings us to its unique defense mechanism. When calm, the pufferfish looks like a regular fish, but when threatened or spooked, it'll inflate itself into its ball form, one that protrudes a bunch of spikes meant to ward off prey. The fear of the pufferfish is so grand that it's full-on illegal to bring these fish into most of the countries in the world. The reason for this is that while you eat the fish, you have to know how to do so without leaving any of the poison in it as you cook it. That's hard to do. Which is where the strangeness element comes in, as Japan is the only country in the world to allow the import of them because they know how to gut it properly. So I guess you could say that they're fearless in the face of the pufferfish. 2. Molidae. Also known as the ocean sunfishes, this unique fish truly stands tall amongst other fish in the sea. And I do mean that quite literally, because they can measure up to 15 feet in length despite having a half-fish look. What does that mean? Simple. When you think of a fish, you usually see a complete body even in the smallest of fish. But the ocean sunfishes have a look that ends at the dorsal fins, which makes it look very odd, yet it's very long. See the weirdness now? Oh, and did I mention that because of their size, they can weigh up to 5,000 pounds? Because they can. One more thing, there are like 40 species of parasites in its skin, because why not at this point? Number 1. Sawfish. The sawfish has a name that definitely lives up to the hype, because as you might suspect, the sawfish is indeed a creature with an appendage that looks very much like a saw. Shocking, I know. Believe it or not, it's not actually the nose of the fish that has the saw. It's actually an extension of the nose called the rostrum, and on that rostrum is a set of spiny teeth that reach out and thus give the fish its saw look. Another odd thing is that while the saw on the fish looks like an offensive weapon, it's actually not clear if that's what it's for. No one really knows how the saw is used on prey, but we do know that it's used as a sensory tool to help the sawfish see all around it. Didn't see that coming, did you? Thanks for watching, everyone. What did you think about these strange fish? Which ones were your favorites among the set? Do you know of another strange fish we can put on the list next time? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on the channel.